Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I'm going to try to get this out. I don't know how long it's going to take to upload and everything, but I sure do hope I can get this out tonight, so you're prepared for Wednesday when Mueller testifies, if Mueller testifies. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Anyway, this was a tweet that came out just not too long ago, and this is from Samantha-Jo Roth. And she has a 6-page memo here from Nancy Pelosi sent out to all the Democrats so they can kind of prepare themselves for the talking points they're going to need for the Mueller testimony. Okay, so I'm going to post this. This was where it came from, the Gateway Pundit. And you have, all of it is here if you want to look at it. It has all the pages for it. This was the cover, and then it has the various pages down here, but they're kind of small, a little hard to see, of course, but if you view the file itself, you can actually see them, and that's what we're going to look at. So here we go. This is what the memo says. Now, I live in farm country, so for us, it'd be put on the waders, folks, because the manure is about to get very, very deep. So here we go. House Democrats act to safeguard our democracy. There it is again. They always call it a democracy. They never even call it a republic or anything like that. And protect our national security. Exposing and combating President Trump's crimes, corruption, and cover-up. I really, as I read through this, I was just thinking, do all the Democrats really, truly believe this? Or are there some who are decent people? Is it possible there's some that are decent people who don't believe this garbage that they're putting out? And I know some of them know it's not true, and they're still putting it out just because it's to save their own butts. But anyway, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report uncovered the truth behind one of the most serious attacks on our democracy in our history. The report revealed that the Russians waged an all-out systematic assault on the 2016 elections to benefit Donald Trump. Trump and his campaign team eagerly welcomed and even encouraged this attack, and that Trump and his allies then took calculated steps to obstruct the investigation and cover up the truth. This is what they were saying before the Mueller report came out. But now the Mueller report's out, and they still are saying the same thing, even though Mueller found no obstruction, no collusion. But they got to keep that narrative going. The administration has engaged in unparalleled abuses of power and corruption while hiding the truth from the American public. And just this month, President Trump said he would again accept campaign help from the Russian government to win the 2020 election. They just make stuff up. The fact that the president would betray our country and jeopardize our national security to accept assistance from a foreign adversary to disrupt our elections should alarm all Americans. They are such masters at twisting stuff around. Anyway, I'm going to go on. I know this is going to irritate me as I read it. It's probably going to tick you off a little bit too, but I wanted to let you know what they're preparing so that their people will say these same talking points tomorrow. Okay? Congress has a patriotic duty to protect our elections. Every member of Congress swears an oath to defend our democracy against threats, both foreign and domestic. Yeah, I can't imagine the amount of cognitive dissonance these people have to live with, because they know, the ones that are actually manufacturing all this, they know it's a big pack of hooey. But oh no, they've got to say it because those are the right words to say. And it boggles my mind. I can't imagine living that kind of a lie, knowing it's a lie and still supporting it so enthusiastically. Just can't imagine. That's not how I was raised, and that's not how I do. So hard for me to understand, but this is what they're doing. Democrats' first action in the majority was to pass H.R. 1, the For the People Act, to strengthen our democracy and protect our elections. Yeah, well, I glanced over it. I mean, it's a long bill. It's like 700 pages long. And actually, I'll put the link down below for you if you want to read it. But just reading over like the table of contents, massively unusual. In fact, I've got the text right here. And when you go through, this is the summary of it. And it talks about, yes, they're doing it for voter access. Well, they're talking about all kinds of things that will lend themselves so easily to fraud. I mean, it really is. And when you look at it, it is so opposite. And when it talks about the ethics for the three branches of government, it's like none of these people would be eligible if they actually talk about ethics because, oh, and I wanted to tell you this, Judicial Watch filed an ethics violation against Ilhan Omar for immigration fraud and stuff. So something to keep your eye on. Yep. Somebody in the comments, I remember, said, well, is anything going to be done about it? Well, yep, evidently something is. So that's something to watch too. But anyway, so this bill, if you want to look at it, I will leave the link down below. This is just the summary. If you want to see the actual text, you go here and then click on text. It is right now in the Senate. It did pass the House. It was totally, according to party lines. The vote was all Republicans voted against it. All Democrats voted for it. And this was their very first bill of the entire session. There are three things really to point out about it. One is that they are pushing for paper ballots. And the reason they're pushing for paper ballots is because the current administration is on to how they've been manipulating numbers with the voting machines. And so they're not going to be able to rely on that anymore. So their next best thing is paper ballots. If they have paper ballots, they can store a whole big bunch of boxes of these until they need them and then haul them out and fake them. Okay? So that's what they're going to do. And then, of course, they destroy a lot of the valid ones that aren't voting for their candidates. This is what happened in Broward County this past election. So, that is for sure. And that's the reason they're going to be pushing for paper ballots. In fact, I just heard Klobuchar today. She was interviewing Christopher Wray in that interview that he did today. And she asked him about paper ballots because she thought that's something they have to have as backup. Yeah, the reason they want that's why. They can fake them, they can print them ahead of time and then use them as they need to. Anyway, so I'll put that, and here's the actual text of it. I'll link to that, the PDF of it. 706 pages, a little longer than I wanted to read. And then here was the vote in the House. It was 234 yeas, 193 nays. There were actually 5 that, weren't there or didn't vote. So, yeah. So, right along party lines, 0 Republicans voted for it. 0 Democrats voted against it. So maybe that answers my question. They are all in on it, aren't they? So anyway, back to this. That is their first action, and they call it For the People Act, which just, ticks me off. Under the leadership of our chairs, Democrats have held numerous hearings on how to best secure our elections, counter subversive interference by our enemies, and blunt the impact of information warfare in our democracy. House Democrats are now advancing legislation to aggressively address the crimes, corruption, and cover-up exposed in the Mueller report, and to build on the critical policies in H.R. 1. We owe it to the American people to get the truth, to protect our national security from future attacks by a foreign adversary, and to restore integrity back into the office of the presidency. Okay, going on. This report details House Democrats' plan to safeguard our democracy from future foreign attacks and to hold the president accountable for his abuses of power. Somehow I just can't imagine this because, the abuse of power is when you weaponize your FBI and CIA to spy on political candidates of the other party. That, to me, is an abuse of power. But where were they when that was happening? Where were they when the IRS was targeting conservative groups? Oh no, we didn't want to do that, did we? We didn't call that abuse of power. Oh, Sorry, I'll calm down. This whole thing's going to make me really upset. So hang with me here. We'll get through it. We'll survive. Democrats will close gaps in existing law, bolster our defenses, and uphold the balance of powers enshrined in our sacred Constitution. Honoring our oath, investigate, litigate, legislate. That's not quite what their oath is. Investigate, litigate, legislate? That's not their oath. Their oath is to defend the Constitution. And that's not what they're doing. And then to call it sacred Constitution, oh my gosh, it's just such a lie. Nothing less than the integrity of our democracy, the rule of law, and national security are at stake. Key findings in the Mueller report. And here they put two quotes together that are not together in the report, but they put them together so that people will assume they're linked. If we had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Yes, thank you, Andrew Weissman. And I will close by reiterating the central allegation of our indictments, that there were multiple systematic efforts to interfere in our election. That allegation deserves the attention of every American. So see, putting that second part in and chopping off the first statement makes it sound like, see, Trump was the one who did that. He supported that interference in our election. It is just so bogus. You know, I have seen people take things out of context all the time, and this is a very popular way of supporting your point and yet ignoring the actual truth. And, you know, I've had people do it with the Bible a lot when I was doing my ministry online. And, you know, I just would come back to him and I say, you know what you just did? It's kind of like saying, Judas went and hanged himself. Go and do thou likewise. You see, you can't just pick out two non-connected verses and put them together and say they are connected, because they're not. And that's what they did here. And again, they cut this one off and they just took it out of context. It was all out of context. The Russian government attacked U.S. elections, and Trump and his campaign welcomed and sought Russia's help to win. Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election in sweeping and systematic fashion. I know that's what Mueller said, but we know it's not true. To help elect Donald J. Trump. No, they were taking both sides. He didn't mention anything in the Mueller report about the times that there was Russian intervention that helped Hillary. You know, Russia was just interested in causing chaos, which is what they succeeded in doing, because look at what we've got. Russia infiltrated U.S. election infrastructure. Okay, that surprises me there, including the successful penetration of state and local election infrastructure and a private voting administration firm. But yet, you know, this was just not something that caused any change in the election. And you have to keep seeing that all over. I mean, that is the bottom line. It didn't change the facts. The Russian government used hundreds of thousands of hacked, stolen documents to disparage candidate Clinton and help Trump. Okay, now that's talking about the DNC hack. All right, folks, we know the DNC hack was not done by the Russians. And I'm going to put these links down below for you because, now, if you haven't seen this, yeah, I know, they put this thing down here because they just don't want to admit that there's actual truth that Seth Rich was the one that gave the information to WikiLeaks. And so anything like that, they put this thing on there and say, you know, it's a conspiracy theory. Oh, no. And so ignore that because KDG here, Citizens Investigative Report, has a really good video you need to watch. And so I'll put the link down below. It's, 58 minutes long, but wow, packed with a lot of good stuff in there. And you need to see it because it's about this lawsuit here. And Edward Butowsky is the one who did this. And he's suing all of these people for libel. Yeah, they said a lot of things about him. They accused him of a lot of things and caused him a lot of grief. And so he is suing them for that. And this, it's a fascinating read, actually. Again, the links will all be down below. You can read it yourself. I thought it was a very fascinating read because He really talks about how, they were trying to cause him trouble just because he had information about Seth Rich. Now, if you go to page 11, that's where it gets really good. On page 11, while the Clinton campaign tasked Perkins Coie with hiring Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele, the DNC set in motion the false narrative that the Russian government had hacked its servers. The DNC's ultimate goal was to blame Mr. Trump for colluding with the Russian government to hack its servers. According to an article in Esquire magazine, DNC officials found out on May 5, 2016, that the DNC servers had been breached. According to the article, the servers had been breached by Russian hackers, and the DNC asked an internet security company, CrowdStrike Inc., to investigate the breach. Now, why in the world was the breach not investigated by the FBI? Why in the world was their server not turned over to the FBI for forensic evaluation? That would have been the thing you should have done. That was the procedure that should have been followed. But oh no, the Democrats are claiming their server was hacked by the Russians. And so they give the server to CrowdStrike and they pay the server actually through Perkins Coie. I mean, they paid Perkins Coie to pay CrowdStrike so they could evaluate it, investigate it. Yeah, that's going to turn up the truth, isn't it? So it goes on, just like it hired Fusion GPS on behalf of the Clinton campaign, and it did so for the purpose of creating a diversion. Contrary to the Esquire story, the DNC had discovered prior to May 5th, 2016, that one of its own employees had been leaking emails. The DNC likely did not know the identity of the employee at that time, but they knew the leak was internal. The DNC also knew that the emails would soon become public, which they did, and it knew that the emails would be very damaging to Mrs. Clinton's political campaign. So, just as Mr. Strzok and Miss Page realized on May 4, 2016, that they needed to bury the mid-year exam investigation into Mrs. Clinton quickly, the Clinton campaign and the DNC recognized an opportunity to rewrite the narrative about the damaging emails that would soon be released to the public, rather than acknowledge that a DNC employee was so appalled by the corruption he had witnessed inside the DNC and the Clinton campaign that he leaked emails to WikiLeaks. The DNC and Clinton campaign decided they would instead blame the leaked emails on the Russian government, then blame Mr. Trump for colluding with the Russian government. The DNC employee responsible for the leaks was Seth Rich, and he was assisted by his brother Aaron. Okay, this is the guy who offered to hire a private investigator to look into Seth Rich's death. At first, the Rich family was going to accept it, and then they decided not to. So, yeah, strange things about that. And then shortly after the murder, and then it talks about Donna Brazile, and she reached out to who? Yeah, McCabe. Yeah, that's who she reached out to because he's a player. So she knew she could trust him. Anyway, it's very interesting, too, that there are reports of Donna Brazile and the D.C. mayor showing up at 4 a.m. at the same hospital Seth Rich was taken to. And that Seth Rich was alive, and actually his wounds were not life-threatening at the time. But then they showed up, and he ended up dying. So, interesting. It's going to be fun to watch all this come out. But anyway, this now opens the door for things to be entered into court, because this is a court document. And he has made this statement, so he's going to have to produce the evidence that will support his claim, and there is evidence out there. Yep, they have it. So anyway, watch this video. It goes more into depth with that Butowsky guy, and it's got really good stuff in there. But let's go back to this lovely little thing here that they're claiming. The Trump campaign welcomed the release of information illegally obtained. No, it wasn't illegally. It was given to them by a DNC staffer by Russian hacking efforts, and President Trump personally received advance notice regarding the release of damaging information. Well, WikiLeaks was sending the information out to everybody. It wasn't like they said, oh, let's give it to Trump. They were sending out to a lot of people. They sent emails to several people. But yeah, and it's like, okay, so even if he knew ahead of time, which then the record actually shows that no, he didn't know ahead of time. But let's just say, to humor them, let's say that he did know ahead of time. What difference does it make? He didn't do it. He wasn't part of it. And somebody says, hey, you know what? I think some stuff about Hillary's going to be coming out soon. Well, what do you expect him to say? Oh, no, that can't come out. I mean, you're not going to do that. No sane person would do that. So, yeah. Okay, going on. Are we sick yet? I hope you've got hip waders on because it's really getting deep. Russia used information warfare to sow discord in the election and to help candidate Trump. Russia engaged in a sustained and sophisticated disinformation campaign across social media platforms to aid Trump's campaign, exploiting loopholes in our campaign finance and communications law. All I'm thinking of as I'm reading this is psychological projection. It is like everything the Democrats did, they are accusing Trump of, and the Russians. It's just too funny. I mean, if it weren't so sad, it's funny. You almost have to laugh just to keep from crying. Special Counsel Mueller identified extensive improper contacts, over 120 in total, between the Trump campaign and Russia agents that were never reported to the FBI, including the sharing of non-public campaign strategy documents. Yeah, so going on. All right, this is the next page of it. It just goes on. We're getting close to the end, though. So, yeah, this is a quote from the Mueller report. Russia stole private information and then released that information through fake online identities and through the organization WikiLeaks. The releases were designed and timed to interfere with our election and to damage a presidential candidate. The more I read of the Mueller report, the less I believe it. Because there's so many things they just totally ignored. They didn't even look into Seth Rich's death, which should have been looked into. It should have been part of the investigation if they were doing it honestly, but they weren't, of course. So that wasn't part of it. The Russian government, the Internet Research Agency, or IRA, reached tens of millions of U.S. persons through their disinformation campaign using fake social media accounts to aid Trump's campaign. Let's see, is that all those bots that Google made up to try to target Trump? Yeah. But I'm sure Google made them for Russia, right? I don't know. Anyway, from June 2016 until the end of the presidential campaign, almost all of the U.S. rallies organized by the IRA focused on the U.S. election, often promoting the Trump campaign and opposing the Clinton campaign. Trump used mob-style tactics to obstruct the Mueller investigation, abuse executive power, and tamper with witnesses. On at least 10 instances, President Trump asked his staff to lie or falsify documents to obstruct the Mueller investigation. Well, we know that they are making this up, that they are saying things that were not in any way to try to stop Mueller. They're twisting it around to make it sound like it was. And they're leaving out the times that Trump said, hey, Comey, if anybody in my, campaign is involved with Russia, man, find them out. We want to take care of that. We don't want that. But, oh no, we don't focus on that. And that wasn't included in Robert Mueller's report. It just was so bogus. It was so one-sided. The report found that the president's obstruction would have been even more dangerous and damaging if not for the fact that many of the persons who surrounded the president declined to carry out orders or accede to his requests. Well, he never said to fire Mueller. He said that Mueller should recuse himself because of the conflicts of interest, which are going to come out massively really soon, folks. And, you have that going on. But yet they turned it around and they said, oh no, he was trying to get Mueller fired. No, if he wanted to obstruct justice and stop the whole thing, then he would have not said fire Mueller. He would have said shut the investigation down, which he never did. And he didn't even say fire Mueller. He let Mueller go all the way through. So, it's just crazy. President Trump engaged in witness tampering and misused his pardon power to discourage Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, and others from cooperating with the Mueller investigation. Now, I have been following the Michael Flynn stuff, and it appears to me that all of his sentencing things that, of course, he's still not been sentenced, but in all of the sentencing hearings, the judge was always saying he'd been very cooperative. In fact, there are documents from Mueller saying Michael Flynn had been cooperative. So, yeah, that is just so bogus. And, Paul Manafort, they kept sticking him in solitary confinement and hoping that he would change his tune. So I guess that's why they say he was not cooperating. The special counsel's office charged 37 people and entities with crimes. Yeah, they were all a bunch of Russians, and some of them weren't even actual Russian companies at the time of the election. So, it was so bogus. And none of those people, other than the Russians, were accused of anything having to do with Russian collusion or even tampering in any way with the election. So, kind of crazy stuff. Already convicted 7, including 5 top Trump campaign officials. Yeah, they kept catching them on perjury charges, bogus perjury charges even, identified evidence of potential criminal activity that was outside the scope of its jurisdiction in 14 additional matters that continue to be pursued by law enforcement. Yeah, because it's the Democrats they're after. That's what's still being investigated. It's not any of the Trump people. It's the Democrats, and transferred another 11 matters. Yes, because the Democrats did a lot of bad things, and they need to be held accountable, so they will be. Exposing and combating the Trump administration's corruption and cover-up. In the wake of Watergate, Congress passed sweeping reforms to combat the corrupting influence of money in politics. Well, then why are all these people so rich? Yeah, so how'd you make your money there, Nancy Pelosi? How about you, Hillary Clinton? Because remember, when you left the White House, you were dirt poor. Yeah, but now you're not. And Maxine Waters, you're doing pretty well for yourself, too. So what's up, huh? Let's try to ask about that. If you want to talk about corrupting influence of money in politics and promote ethics and transparency in government. Today, faced with the unprecedented level of corruption and vulnerability to our democracy exposed in the Mueller report, Congress is acting with the same urgency. The effort by multiple committees has relied on a robust hearing, legislative, and litigation strategy. See, this is all planned. I mean, they have been together trying to figure out a way to take Trump down. And so this whole hearing, legislative, and litigation is a strategy that will continue to unfold over the coming weeks and months. House Democrats will engage the American people in a national discussion about the crimes exposed by the Mueller report while continuing to advance a comprehensive policy response to protect our national security and secure our democracy in advance of the 2020 election, building on H.R. 1, the For the People Act. And, they have 3 basic things that are really red flags in that. The one is the paper ballots. The second one is that they want to register underage voters. Yeah, it says that. Really, it does. And the third one is they have to see the president and vice president's tax returns for the last, I think it was 10 years or something like that. I don't know. It was a long time. And if they don't, then they won't be able to run. Yeah, that's part of it right there. So this work includes a focus on legislative reform across 3 key goals. Secure and defend our elections. House Democrats have advanced legislation that increases funding to protect our state election systems, requires adoption of paper ballots and risk limit audits, and mandates strict cybersecurity notification requirements for election technology vendors. Oh, and in there also, there's a thing about how they're going to limit how voter lists can be purged. Yeah. Because, we don't want their voters getting purged just because they're illegal or they're dead. Number 2, prevent foreign interference and influence. House Democrats will advance legislation that closes foreign money loopholes, codifies an affirmative duty to report foreign intervention in campaigns, clarifies in-kind and coordination law, and shuts down illicit foreign activity in our elections through greater oversight and transparency. You know what I've got to say on that? You first. Let's see the Democrats. And number 3, end the corruption, end the abuse of power, and promote transparency. House Democrats will advance legislation that prohibits the creation of false documents by the office of the president. And I honestly don't know what they're talking about with the false documents, so maybe I've missed something along the way, but they're accusing him of producing false documents. I'm not sure what that is. And ends presidential interference in law enforcement decisions. Yes, but you know, he's the head of the executive branch, and all the law enforcement goes under the executive branch because he's the person we elected so that he is tasked with enforcing the laws of our land. I mean, that really is what his entire branch does. So, anyway, here's the last page. Thank goodness it's only a partial page, too. All of Congress should be able to agree that we need to protect our national security, secure our elections, and defend our democracy. Yet Republicans in the House continue to stand in the way of action. Not one single House Republican voted in support of H.R. 1. I told you, not one of them. While Senate Majority Leader McConnell continues to brag that he is the Grim Reaper of our House legislation. Refusing to take up our vital legislation to strengthen our national security and shield our democracy from foreign attacks. What's more, congressional Republicans are complicit in the obstruction of legitimate congressional investigations and the president's ongoing disregard for the rule of law. What I think is just so hypocritical of them is they are out there saying, nobody's above the law. With the rule of law, we have to stand for the rule of law. And then they turn right around and say, when it comes to the illegals coming across the border, oh, they don't have to abide by the law. Let's just not have them do that. Let's ignore the whole idea of crossing our border being something illegal, being a crime. That should not be a crime to cross our border without papers, without documentation, without going through any process. I mean, but then they turn right around. Nobody's above the rule of law. Yeah. Members of Congress have a responsibility to honor our oath of office. Yeah, did they really realize that they're not honoring their oath of office? The vision of our founders and the text of the Constitution. Again, they're totally ignoring the Constitution when they're doing a lot of this stuff. Our Democratic House majority will continue to fight for our national security by securing our elections, safeguarding our democracy, and holding the president accountable. Because no one is above the law, except for anybody who's illegal or if you're a Democrat. Then you are. So the only people that actually have to follow the law are Republicans. So anyway, like I said, I will put these down below. This is the actual document. It's 51 pages long, but like I said, ooh, good read. It's a very good read. And if you go to Citizens Investigative Report here, KDG does a good job of going through it. She shows some really good clips that I think you'll want to see. And then here's the text of the bill. And, well, this is the summary. And then if you want the text of the bill or find out anything about it, you just click here and you can go to it and see what's been going on with it. I just think it's kind of funny. And it's just not going anywhere. It's not going to pass the Senate. There's just no way. They've got too many things in there that are little time bombs that, yeah, we don't want to deal with that. I mean, all you have to do is go through and see, like, this tells a summary of everything. And when you start reading through this, you're going, what? But they sometimes, be careful, because sometimes they make it sound like it's something good. And then you have to actually go look at the text to see what they're doing. But yeah, they just want to reform how we do our elections so that it favors them. Anyway. And there again is the roll call for it, which doesn't surprise anybody. but that's what it was. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I don't know if it'll get up tonight, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try something different. Maybe I can get into the library before it closes and see if I can upload there, and maybe it'll go a little faster. So I don't know. I'm not guaranteeing it'll come out tonight, but I definitely want to get it out before Mueller testifies. And if he testifies, and if he actually shows up, it's going to be interesting. And yeah, he probably won't answer anything that the Republicans ask him, but at least they will have asked. And they're going to bring out some stuff that people probably have no clue really they have documentation for. So, and they're things that people need to know, because that whole report, you know, I've said this before. It's like they went to somebody's ex-spouse and they said, will you write a report on this person? And so it's like everything bad, and it says it all in a very bad way. The choice of wording they have is so Trump looks worse than he really is. And so they did it purposely. They crafted that document. It really was crafted. So when they talk about how they took time to write it, yeah, they did, because they needed it to say what they needed it to say, so it could make the Democrats continue this whole lying narrative. And so anyway, so that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.